Roberts with it. It's brilliant. Superbly executed by Dennis Cirkin at Sunderland. This time, the set-piece plan does work. That's loose and Wynn, that's Mayenda's onto this. Bang! 2-0 to Sunderland in next to no time. Rigg swarming around him and it's touched in. Luke 09 steps up again. Clark on the way here. Mayenda's waiting in the middle. It's Clark. He brings the house down at the Stadium of Light. Sunderland are blowing Sheffield Wednesday away.
Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the Roker Rapport podcast in association with the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. Gav and you join us after Sunderland's rousing 4-0 victory at the Stadium of Light. First home game of the season against Sheffield Wednesday, and I can't think of a better man to get on for this game and this pod than Chris Wynn, who, as some of you may remember, he knows a few Sheff Wed fans, so I'm sure he's really enjoying this one even more so than I am. Hiya, mate.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm pretty chuffed, as you might be able to tell. I was proper all week. I've been getting the messages, and I've been staying quiet, biding me time, quietly confident, but at the same time, doing a proper, I'd love it if we beat them and all that sort of stuff. And 15 minutes in, less than half an hour in, I was like, this is going to be double figures here. I'm actually slightly, there's like 1% of us slightly disappointed we didn't get more, but yeah, I would have snapped your hand off for being 2-0 up in 15 minutes.
Oh, yeah, it was amazing. I mean, we had a Sheff Wed fan on Twitter Space on Friday night that we did, and he predicted a 3-0 win to them. He was really confident, and that's the vibe I've had all week. Every Sheff Wed fan I've seen and spoke to, and even the EFL podcasts and stuff, they're all raving about Sheff Wed at the minute. We went to the fan museum before the game to have a couple of pints, standing with my mates talking about the game, and I really wasn't confident. I was standing there, I'd probably take a point today. Like I'd really tricked myself into thinking like, bloody hell, Sheff Wed are a good team and we might struggle today, but I mean, nobody could have predicted what we got. I think bell to bell, that's up there with some of the best 90-minute performances I've ever seen from a Sunderland team. I would go that far. I just think when we had the game won, we then just controlled it. I was seeing things that Labrie has been talking about over the last few weeks when he's on about, wanting to control the game more when we didn't do that at Cardiff. We weren't in control of the ball as much as we probably wanted to. But this performance, I mean, it had everything, didn't it? We were so good at times, and the players, they were vibing off the crowd because the crowd were vibing off them. And then, the way we knocked the ball around at times, you're looking at like, I don't know how many times Job did that little drag back through his legs, which took 2-3 players out of the game at once. Yeah. Rigg sauntering about. We had Roberts taking people on and skinning them. We had Clark on the other side doing the same. I mean, the defence never looked troubled, and the fullbacks were getting forward and joining in with the attacks. Everything I want to see from a Sunderland team, it was. I'm not going to say it was perfect, but when I think about complete performances, it was right up there. And the fact I never seen it coming makes it even sweeter for me.
When you say complete performances, I mean, let's obviously start getting into the game. First 10 minutes, watching Sheffield Wednesday, I thought they looked organised, and actually they started the better team first 5-10 minutes. For going from 10 seconds in when they charged Luke 09 down kind of on the edge of the box. But
I will say on that, by the way, the lad who nearly dispossessed him was already in our half when they kicked off. That should have been pulled back.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, maybe, but the fact that 09 had a lot of time, he did. But look, I mean, it's just because actually, I don't think we actually started all that brightly. I thought we had to be walking up a little bit, and there was like a short corner in the first couple of minutes where we didn't react to it. That
was funny.
We didn't react to it, and kind of Sheffield Wednesday kind of had a couple of men across and didn't make anything of it because, to be honest, they didn't. Apart from being organised in the first 5-10 minutes, like I said, didn't look that good at all. They came out the blocks, and I thought, oh, hang on, we might have some bother here. We might have to find a way around it. We were trying to press, and they were not going to ball over the top. And then we just, like I said, just slowly built a bit of momentum up. And then once the goal went in after about 10 minutes, as you said, that was it. Their heads went down. our tails were up. There was just one winner after that. I mean, they almost, as soon as we scored, it was like first goal the winner. It was like, oh, well, you've won now. We'll just kind of down tools. And we did our thing, controlled the game. The more we get into it, but we talk about the first 20 minutes. Yeah, we were 2-0 up after 16 minutes, but the first 20 minutes, Sheffield Wednesday had 60% of the possession. And I think this is the evolution we're going to have, where we're not looking at the type of, no, it's not aimless possession, but it's keeping possession for the sake of keeping possession. I remember one of his first press conferences, Labrie was talking about, having so many passes to get into the final third. And you can see that what we seem to do is play a diagonal, or we start from further up the pitch. So we don't necessarily start from the back and play it all the way up. We play a diagonal, and that gets us 30, 40 yards up the pitch. So we get in behind the opposition's midfield. So when we start knocking it about, we're already in a decent position on the pitch. And it seemed like we do that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think actually we'll see too many games where we're the ones who has 60, 70% of the possession. I don't think that's the way he plays. I think he's more kind of on the front foot, doing things quickly when we've got possession, rather than, as I said, just knocking it around the back. But in the end, we ended up having lots of possession purely because we were 3-4-0 up and controlled the game.
Yeah, and I think as well, to be able to press the way we have been, certainly in pre-season and in the first few games, to be able to do that, you do have to, I guess, give up a little bit of possession at times to force mistakes. And that was really where we won the game for me. We pressed the hell out of them. And Chef Wed, trying to play out from the back, just didn't have a clue what to do with us.
Well, the second goal.
Yeah. I mean, it happened all the way through the game. And it's what's really pleasing is it's not just... I've seen it before where the only person charging round, it could be Clark or it could be, Dan Neal or whatever. It's everybody. Chris Rigg is made for that kind of system. They can't live with him when he presses. He's an absolute pressing machine. It's a joy to watch, isn't it? I love it, mate. It's probably my favourite style of football when you do it properly. When you're especially in home games, when the crowd get up, it happens so many times where Job done it quite a lot, where he was closing people down and winning the ball, and then the crowd get up, and then it forces the players forward, and then everyone screams, "Come on!" And then it gets everybody up, and all of a sudden we're 10 yards up the pitch, and the other team are shitting themselves. Yeah. It's like, in terms of involving the crowd in the game, and I mean, Dennis Cirkin talked about it after the match, when he said at times it was like having a 12th player on the pitch. The style of football dictates the way the crowd react, which then influences the players. And if you can get that right, your home form should be unbelievable across the season. It was a real sign of how we do need to go. Yeah. And like I say, I to be honest, I'd kind of blanked the first 10 minutes from my mind. You brought us right back down to earth there. But I'd totally kind of blanked that from my mind. And thinking back, there were obviously that first moment where straight away your heart's in your mouth, and we kind of get away with it. 09 recovered. And then there was a couple of times where they played the ball down the sides to the big lad up front, and he was winning it and getting in behind. But at the same time, we recovered well. The defenders were getting around the back and they were winning the ball back. Yeah. So, there was that. But yeah, probably that first 10 minutes or so, it was a little bit slow. And we felt our way into it. But like you say, once we got that first goal, it was a Sunderland win all day. I didn't see us losing the game. No. And you've got to look at that first. We'll look at the first goal, I guess, which I don't know. Is this going to become a feature of our play under this manager? And I think we're maybe not giving enough credit out here when I kind of just say under this manager, because last week at Cardiff, he was quick to point to, he said assistants, obviously referring to Dodds and Proctor. He gave them the credit for the header we scored. And then in this one, I think it was Dennis Cirkin after the game, specifically named Michael Proctor and said, this is him. But is this going to become a feature of our play? I hope so, because our set pieces have been brilliant so far. And I thought at first glance when I watched it, I was thinking, that was terrible defending from Chef Wed. That was my first thought. And then when I got back after the game and I put the Sky coverage on, at half time, Gareth Ainsworth was talking about it, and he said, look what Sunderland have done here. It's really clever. We basically built a wall around their pack, which stopped any of them picking up Cirkin. He just wandered around. It looks like he just wanders around the back, but if you look, we've got 4 players boxing them in. They can't get near him. And it's a well-worked training ground set-piece routine, which like in my life, we've not had many instances where that's been the case, where you see that evidence on the pitch, and certainly not last season. I mean, our set pieces were terrible, but it was such a pleasing goal, because not just for that what I've said, but that's my favourite type of goal, when someone runs onto a cross and heads it and it thunders into the back of the net. Love it. Like, just one of the best goals to watch in it. It's like you can sort of feel your body doing the same motion. I always remember Alex Neil doing it. I can't remember who scored the header now, but he got video, didn't he? Like heading the ball with the players. That's what you do when that kind of ball goes in. You're like, go on, and you head in the air. I just love that goal. There was so much to love about that goal, and it got us off to a brilliant start.
Yeah. Well, look, when you've got a routine like that and you get it so right, like we did, it just looks so easy, doesn't it? You just think, well, why don't you do it all the time when you see things like that? But obviously it's not that easy, because otherwise everyone would be doing it. But I mean, like I said, the routine, and actually just quickly go back to winning the free kick, because that is Jack Clarke.
Yeah.
It's those things actually sometimes you don't realise, because obviously you see the brilliant things he does, like an assist or whatever. But carrying the ball 15, 20 yards up the pitch and winning a free kick out of nothing, because it wasn't a free kick, if we're completely honest, he won the free kick by putting his body in a position where, referees think he's fouled, but he's not actually fouled, and he wins a free kick in a dangerous area. But that's what Jack Clarke brings us. I mean, I don't want to shout it from the rooftops too much, because window's still open and all that. But yeah, I mean, that's the type of thing he does, that, we might not even notice win a free kick like that. But when it comes to the routine, as you said, we've got that back post sorted. And I think the other thing that does it is, and I can't remember who it was, but when Roberts was going up to take the actual free kick, someone ran down the left-hand side. So they ran the other side of the wall to do a run as if he was going to slip him in. So the Sheffield Wednesday players were almost edging towards that side, thinking that's how we were going to do the routine. It meant, because we did that shield, as you said, at the back post, I mean, Dennis Cirkin started in the centre as if he was going to wait for the ball to take a shot or something on the edge of the box, and he just wandered around the back post. And when it's like that, I mean, you've got to think that, I mean, from a Sheffield Wednesday point of view, if they've got zonal marking, it went completely wrong. But if they've got man-to-man marking and someone was actually supposed to be marking Cirkin, then, he wants kind of beaten on the training ground. Because, I mean, it was shocking to leave someone round the back post kind of in the end, 6-8 yards out, easy header home off a free kick like that. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And then a great header, though. I mean, but the thing is, you've got to get these, you make that situation, but the ball in's got to be perfect and the header's got to be perfect.
Yeah.
And there were. I mean, Roberts' clip, I mean, it couldn't have been any better. I mean, Cirkin didn't really have to do all that much with it, but headed in the right direction. Keeper didn't stand much of a chance, because, like I said, it was only 68 yards out. The next 5 minutes, Sheffield Wednesday just looked completely rattled and all over the place. As soon as we opened the score, and it felt like that was it, game over.
Yeah, and we as I said before, the pressing was immense. Particularly after that first goal, we had our tails up. They were still trying to play out from the back. I know when you've got a manager who's really set in his ways and has a philosophy in playing, that for the players, that it's drilled into them. So even when they're 1-0 down, he'll be reinforcing it. We saw this quite a lot with Southampton last year with Russell Martin, particularly at the start of the season where they were getting beaten. He was still reinforcing, no, this is how we play football. And they were getting beaten, and everyone's looking at it going, why are you still trying to do that when you're getting beat? That was how I kind of felt watching Sheffield, because even when they were getting beat, they were struggling with our press. They were still trying to play through it, and it was just mistake after mistake after mistake. And the second goal is, I mean, perfect. Yeah. Again, a perfect example of this pressing system, because it's our centre half, 2/3 of the way up the pitch, winning a tackle, which gets us the goal. And I mean, yes, there's a degree of luck with how the ball ricochets into the path of Eliezer Mayenda. But when he turns to head towards goal, he's still got two centre-halves bearing down on him.
Yeah.
He's still got a goalkeeper to beat. And the finish is exquisite. For a lad who's not scored a senior goal at Sunderland, who's been under constant scrutiny and pressure, as all of the strikers have, but particularly for a young boy like that, lots of scrutiny, lots of pressure, people talking about how he's not good enough, people saying that, the fact that he went to Hibs and didn't play is a sign he's not good enough, all these things. For him to be able to do that is a big, big sign of the self-belief he probably has.
Yeah.
And I just, watching him, I had the same feeling when Josh Maja burst onto the scene and just couldn't stop scoring. I felt a bit like that with Mayenda, where it was like, ooh, Like, we knew this boy's got a little bit of something, but that's like a bit more. That's somebody who actually can handle himself. And that finish was beautiful. I think it was arguably one of the best goals we've scored in the last couple of years, I would say. Just the finish, just a left-footed screamer, really, and really well-placed goal. But again, it all came from the work we did off the ball with the pressing. Yeah. And Luke O'Nien, I can't remember who it was he went through with, but it was a hell of an interception, closed him down, and because he went at the ball with such ferocity, it sent it 20 yards up the pitch, and we score from it. It's just, again, a lovely goal.
Yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, I mean, it all came from Wednesday trying to do something that basically they should have been shutting up shop and keeping it tight for a bit. But yeah, I mean, like I said, the Luke O'Nien right up his backside, but I think it was Windass. I'm sure it was Windass in the middle of the park. He tried to do this daft little flick, and like I said, because O'Nien was...
Yes, I think you're right, yeah.
Right up behind him, it ricocheted back to Mayenda. But even then, Mayenda, like the two centre-halves were kind of split when he first received the ball, but they put him under pressure, like you said. It was a bit like the kind of free kick routine I was talking about, that the way Mayenda finished it, he made it look, at first, when you saw it at first, it looked like he stroked the ball in and the keeper was kind of way out of his goal or something, because he made it look easy. But then when you saw it from behind the goal, you saw actually that when he received the ball, yes, okay, he looked like he was in acres of space to start with, but he still had a lot to do, and he was still a fair distance out. He was a good kind of right in the edge of the box. He still had a lot to do, and it was a great finish. But the thing with Mayenda is, in one sense, that I'm not sure he was necessarily started the season up front. You know, I don't think the new manager's seen him and thought, oh, you know, he could bag 15, 20 goals this season. It's part of what you were talking about there in this press. I think actually he's looked at his options up front and the way he wants to play and the way he wants that person up front to be the focal point of a press. And I think Mayenda's his best option in that sense. So as a striker, I'm not sure he's necessarily been given the nod to start the season as saying, you know, you're my man, you're going to get 25 goals or whatever. It's like, this is the way we want to play, and you're my first line of defence. And when you get the ball, try and get a couple of goals as well. And I think that's basically what the thinking was by starting him in that way, because he can do that job. And I think the way the manager plays, I think actually he probably holds up higher because we've got those attacking players, and if we can get that attacking play right in the final third and set pieces and whatever, he might not necessarily be relying on a striker to get 20 goals or, you know, whatever, where he's thinking he might hold higher those attributes that allow us to close teams down in the final third as much as he does those kind of goal scoring talents that Mayenda might have. I mean, as it happens, he showed that side of it, but I think all day he was in the right place to split defenders and make sure like a pass wasn't on if they wanted to play it around the back, or he made it difficult for them if they wanted to play it long. And he was able to kind of double up with the likes of Clark and Rigg and Job if they pushed forward, and Roberts. Even if he didn't bag the goals, he's making us effective by closing down teams, but he's getting goals as well, which I think to the new manager is probably just a bonus.
Yeah. I think particularly when you analyse the conversation around strikers at the minute, we all know we need one. I would have said two, but he's really made me think we don't. Maybe we just need one. And that's what you want. You want players like Mayenda, like Rigg, playing like they did, giving you something to think about. Because ultimately, you know, when we talk about that game on Tuesday night at Preston, for instance, and everybody's looking at it and going, oh, the players we have in reserve aren't good enough and this, that and the other. Some of them may not be. But when you see different players playing in the first team in a league game, you see a very different side of them. I remember last year we had, I think it was Birmingham at home, when we had Triantis and Sealt centre-half because we'd had a bit of an injury crisis, and I think O'Nien might have been suspended or something. And in that scenario, in that environment, we won the game 3-1. They both played really well. I think Triantis even scored. And you know, that's really, ultimately, that's all that matters, isn't it? When they come into the team, do they look good with the other first-team players? You know, Mayenda's had a clean run on it, really, when you look at pre-season. Ever since the South Shields game, he's been the man. Lebrie's stuck by him. Now, whether that would have been the case, whether we'd been able to get a striker in a bit earlier or whatever, I don't know. But, you know, he's shown faith in him, hasn't he? The reason that he scored 2 goals is the net result of showing faith in this kid and going, you're going to be able to make... Like, Cardiff last week, he was all over the place at times. You know what I mean? Yeah. Probably really nervous. First start, proper start in a championship game. Not everything came off for him. He was tripping over his feet a bit. The centre-halves were careering through the back of him, and You know, he had a couple of shots where he should have done better. He had that really good chance which the keeper saved.
Yeah.
He stuck by him. He kept him in the team. Now, last year, Rusyn would have started this game.
Well, I was going to say, if you look at the first day of the season, how Mayenda played, and then last season, kind of dare I say it, Hamir on the opening day, and then he got benched.
Yeah, things have changed in that regard, and they've shown faith in him, and he's got 2 goals. And now everyone's looking at Mayenda. It was live on Sky. Everybody talking, not just within the Sunderland bubble, but outside of it, the EFL podcast and pundits and all the rest of it. They're now going to be talking about him. All of a sudden, he's got a bit of presence and status and confidence from scoring the goals. And
he's like a new signing.
Well, Martin made this point in our group chat. He said, you know, if we'd signed him for 15 million, say, or 10 million or whatever, during the week, and he'd come in and done that, we'd all be going, bloody hell, what a bit of business we've just done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is how you would be viewing him. So, you know, great.
That's what I was thinking.
We've stuck by him, and he's, you know, the rewards are the goals, and hopefully this is it for him. Now, hopefully this is really him arriving at Sunderland. Like, I would love nothing more for him to keep scoring goals and make it really, really difficult for whoever we do bring in to get into the team. That's what you want. You want real competition, and he knows that the club are looking for a striker, and he has to prove his worth, and I think that's what he's done with this performance.
Yeah. And I've said on a previous pod as well, when we were talking about strikers, that it would be telling if we went out and did that. I'm not saying we still shouldn't. I think there's still certainly room there to get at least one striker, but it's a signal to those young lads who you brought in, who you might not necessarily have said, you know, your chance might not come straight away, but it might come at some point, and we want to develop you. So if you start bringing in those strikers, you've got to be careful of the message that you're sending to young players who you say might get a chance at some point. Now, Mayenda's got this chance and he's taken it so far. But again, you've got to manage that and either say, right, well, you know, do we rely on you or do we go out and buy someone else? I still think they will bring someone else in, but it's how they handle that communication to those young players to say, well, we still got faith in you, but you're young and you're going to get that chance where that shirt's going to be yours permanently at some point. But yeah, you've still got to get them the chances. If you're bringing in young players, you can't just dismiss them after a few games and say, oh, actually, we brought them in, but they weren't good enough. They need that time. And yeah, I mean, he's got off to a good start. I think the jury's obviously still out. You know, he's had a couple of good games. Jury's still out whether that can last a whole season. You know, obviously we're hopeful, but at the same time, I don't think the pressure should be on him to say that you're the one we're relying on. So it'll be interesting to see. I still think they'll bring at least one in. Yeah. But I mean, the way Mayenda started, whoever comes in is basically going to be sat on the bench until Mayenda either needs a rest or his form dips.
Yeah, and I think Luke O'Nien said it on Sky, and then the manager said it on the club's channel, talking about Mayenda, saying that it was something along the lines of he's set the standard for the other young players of how to get your chance and work hard, because apparently every day he grafts his arse off in training, and they were really singing up basically how hard he works, and the fact that he's got over the initial disappointment of maybe not playing a lot and is now in the team. And basically saying to the other players who are in the squad in the position he was in, that's what you've got to do to get noticed. So absolutely over the moon for him, and we'll come on to the...
I think he'll have done anything to avoid playing in the Scottish League for another season, to be honest.
Well, yeah. The third goal, though, straight away, my thought was like that was offside. Everyone around us is going, friggin' hell, we're getting away with that. That was offside. Like, from the stands, that looked a mile off. But obviously then you see the replay back, and it's Josh Windass again. I think he was our best player. Josh Windass, he came in handy, didn't he? He played everybody. I mean, what was he doing? No. He must have been 4 or 5 yards deeper than the rest of his team.
Completely asleep.
But Luke O'Nien, again, showing that work, putting the graft in to get in a position when, you know, others maybe wouldn't want to go in there because they might get hit and hurt. He stuck himself in the way, and it paid off because he was more brave than their goalkeeper, and he scores. Maybe the goalkeeper was half thinking he was offside and I don't need to fully commit to this or whatever. But again, it came from a set piece, didn't it? It came from one of our corners, I think. Yeah. It took a while to get out, and eventually it worked out. But
short corner, and normally I hate short corners, but most of our corners were short, and actually we seemed to get something out of them every time because we had a way of doing it. And Clark had the ball for quite a bit of time, kind of twisting and turning on that side. And he ended up, I thought at one point he was going to have a shot because he did his thing where he came across the edge of the box, and he ended up laying it off to Rigg, who had a shot, and then it deflected up. But yeah, I mean, and we were like that all day off short corners, and I think it's another one that we've worked on. I mean, yeah, you said earlier on how much bother we had in the last couple of years with corners. I think we were kind of famous for it at one point, not scoring from corners. And the way we worked those short corners, especially when you've got Clark and Roberts on either side, who were able to kind of play between each other to get into a different position. Because to be honest, if you looked at the difference between the two sides in terms of height, what was the point in chucking the ball into the mixer? There was absolutely none.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it was just common sense, the fact that we played it short and got it out to the likes of Rigg on the edge of the box, and then we got something from it. Funniest thing was that it was like 3 minutes later, because actually you looked at the Wednesday coaching staff on the sidelines, even though they had a laptop behind them that was showing the game and showed that it was onside, they were still shouting at the fourth official saying it was offside. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then 3 minutes later, funny when Sheffield Wednesday thought they'd scored, and then it was ruled out for offside.
Well, that went down well in the ground as well. Obviously, you'll have heard it. Just everybody laughing at them. We were actually going to hope that was onside, and like just to rub salt in the wounds, hoping it was onside and it had been disallowed just to piss them off even more.
But again, a minute after the goal was ruled out for offside, so that was like after 27 minutes, they showed a caption where Sheffield Wednesday had 65% possession. And this is what I was talking about earlier with this new manager and the way we're playing now. It's kind of meaningful possession where we have possession, but it's like we make something of it. So every time we had the ball, we looked dangerous. Whereas when every time Sheffield Wednesday looked, they could have had the ball all afternoon and they didn't look like scoring.
No. And then came half time. Obviously, then came half time. We had 20 minutes or so before half time and we just controlled the ball. Did pretty well when we had it. Never looked under threat. Kept trying to force openings. Went in a half-time 3-0 up.
Well, it could have been more.
Funny, I don't know if you saw the Access All Areas video the club put out. All the players coming down the tunnel asking the staff in the tunnel whether it was onside or not. So even they weren't sure still. Like 20 odd minutes after 09 had scored. But yeah, I mean, we looked pretty happy going in, really relaxed, obviously, as you would be at 3-0 up.
Well, I think Rigg was gutted, wasn't he? That chance right in injury time, before the whistle.
Yeah,
I thought that was in.
Yeah, the volley.
I was up for that one. I thought it was in.
Yeah, it was a great save from their goalkeeper. I mean, it would have capped off a great performance for Rigg if he'd scored that, but is what it is. I was sat thinking, just what's going through their manager's head here. He doesn't look like a ranter and raver, so I can't imagine he'll have went in there ranting and raving. But they made a sub at half time. He'll have totally changed his game plan, I'm assuming. Like a minute into the second half, they concede again. He must just be thinking, "Oh, what the fuck am I doing here?" Just like it just wasn't their day, was it? He'd obviously tried to change it, and I'm sure they went through a lot. And they were the first team back out onto the pitch as well, so they looked keen. They were straight back out there. He was probably thinking, "Right, we've got now to lose here. Let's go for it." And then we just cut them open again. It was a lovely goal. Like, I mean, the pass from Chris Rigg to Clark, that's the type of thing you see Phil Foden doing in the Premier League. I've heard Phil Foden and Chris Rigg compared a little bit in terms of playing styles and trajectory and all the rest of it. But like, that is the type of pass that type of player can make. You don't get that very often at Sunderland, do you? That type of player who can play special passes like that. And it was a lovely ball, like weighted to kind of volley into the gap between the fullback and the centre half. But then there was still stuff to do, and Clark's ball in was inch perfect, absolutely inch perfect. And that, for me, I mean, I've said a lot, every goal, I've loved every goal for different reasons, but this one, that's the type of move and ball in that we didn't do last year anywhere near enough. Like, how many times did you see a centre forward just run onto a cross and tap it in? I don't think we did it. Maybe Rusyn once, I'm not sure. But that whole move was lovely to watch again, and just another example of the way that this manager's got us going. Because, again, it wasn't like we'd had a massive spell of possession. We kind of broke against them, and we were clinical when we did it. And Mayenda's strength, I guess, compared to some of the other forwards we've got, is he's got pace. So he's got that ability to... Like the centre-halves will be shitting themselves thinking, bloody hell, he's quick him, so he's getting in behind. If the deliveries into the 6-yard box are good, then he should get 15, 20 goals this season. Any striker would. If the service is as good as that regularly and consistently, which it should be, because I watch football every week and the best teams do play like that. They get the ball wide and then they cross the ball at the right time. It was even though it was a tap-in, it was a lovely goal again, just for the whole move, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say, you were talking about Wednesday coming out first. And I think there was a little bit of psychology going on, because if you looked, all the Sunderland players, all the Wednesday players were on the pitch for quite a while. All the Sunderland players just stayed in the tunnel. They were right on the edge of the tunnel, and they all just waited in there for a good few minutes while Wednesday were kind of waiting for us on the pitch. And I think it was a little kind of, right, well, they're out. We're just going to wait here until the last minute, until we have to go out, and then let them wait out there and kind of stew on it on the pitch. But yeah, like I said, a minute later, and that was kind of it. And it was one of those things, wasn't it? I know it's kind of 3-0, but you're thinking, 45 minutes, if they get an early goal, are we going to get nervous? How's it going to go? And that goal just completely finished it off. It just flattened them. And like you said, I mean, that pass by Rigg, you could watch that all day. You could just stick that on a loop and just watch it over and over again. I mean, that's kind of how footy's supposed to be played. And just getting a pass like that, it's like, it's getting a golf shot perfect. It's just when you hit one of them, you just know where it's going. You just know it's the right pace on it. Where it's going into Clark's path. And as you said though, the Mayenda positioning, at any point after Clark got the ball, Mayenda was in a perfect position. Like, Clark could have played it first time because Mayenda was there. We had a centre forward in the right position, and he was waiting for the ball.
Yeah.
And like you said, it was something that you didn't see last season. And at any point, Clark could have played that ball. And obviously, he waited until the perfect moment, don't get us wrong. But because he was there, it gave Clark the option to play it at any point because Mayenda was just in a good position. Exactly where you expect the striker to be. And Clark did his thing. He waited right until the last minute, took the keeper out of it, and made it easy. And it's just nice to see us score a goal that is a striker's goal. And I can't. It's been far too long since we've seen it.
Yeah, and again, the wind out of them. Minute into the second half, the 4-0 down. It's game over. It was already game over, but they'll have come out with the best of intentions to try and get a goal back and maybe see what happened. And they've shown they're capable of scoring goals. So I'm sure their thought process would have been, if we can get an early goal in the second half, we can put a bit of pressure on Sunderland, get the crowd on their back. We can nick a second with sort of half an hour to go, then it's game on. It just took the air out of them. We then totally changed the way we played, because when we did have possession, it was almost like we were doing it in sort of first gear. We were just stroking it around. It actually was. I've never seen the team look so relaxed. The amount of times where we were just sort of like sauntering about, little flicks around the corner, like, it was proper ole stuff at points, and it was, again, fantastic watch. Good technical players. That must be the most amazing environment to play football in when you're 4-0 up at home, just cruising. That's what we were. We were cruising.
Yeah.
And there was a couple of moments where we had sort of spells of sort of 15, 20 passes, where if we'd finished it off, it would have been like liquid football. You know what I mean? But generally, I can't fault the second half after that point. I think that was the thing Labrie picked up on last week when he said, when we were ahead, we didn't keep the ball enough. And obviously, it's very easy to do that when you're 4-0 up and the away team have effectively started waving the white flag. But that was nice to see too, because I wasn't baying for blood. I wasn't like, go and get a fifth, go and get a sixth. I just wanted to see what we saw, which was the players enjoying themselves and kind of, I mean, for big periods, it was silent in the ground because there was. My dad even said it's been kind of boring in the second half, hasn't it? But I want that. Yeah. You want it. The best way to win a game is like that.
Let's control.
Kill them off and see it out.
Yeah.
Exactly. Control the game and send people home happy. Nobody's walked away from that and been disappointed as a result. So
no chance.
Second half, I can't. Again, the game plan was faultless.
Yeah, that's it. And like I said, it was just controlling the game. That second half, just playing it out. We've won 4-0. Don't pick any daft injuries, don't get any daft cards, don't, just play the game and just keep control. And we did. And if Sheffield Wednesday played all night, they wouldn't have scored. They looked, I mean, at times we made, and actually, I genuinely think, as much as, I was taking the mick at the start, I think Wednesday will be a solid mid-table side this season. And we're going to look back on that as a really good result.
Yeah. And again, similar time in the season to the Southampton game last year, similar kind of performance.
Yeah,
I thought it was really interesting that after the game, Dennis Cirkin was keen to point that out, because he was asked about kind of where we go from here and stuff, and he mentioned, well, I think to sort of Southampton last year, and he basically said we didn't build on that. We had a really good win and then we didn't build on it. Yeah. And that's what we've got to be wary of now. We've got to build on this. I mean, it doesn't get any more difficult than the next game, does it? We've got Burnley, but that's the kind of performance that will put other teams on notice. they'll not take us lightly now, given what we've done in the first 2 games. 2 clean sheets, 6 goals. You know, I think somebody said it's the best start we've had since the 70s.
Oof.
I mean, can't remember the last time we started a season this well. I know it's 2 games, but it's the clean sheets too, isn't it? We're not just scoring goals; we're keeping them out at the other end. So, yeah, I'm glad that we've done that, because it does put the rest of the league on notice, and it makes people stand up and realise actually we are a good team, which I've always maintained. You know, I am a bit of a happy clapper, but I hate hearing my fellow fans kind of do down Sunderland. There's a lot of people who really want to point out that we're shit, we're this, we're that, and I think we're not shit. This team played the best football. I said this on this podcast many times. Under Mowbray, played the best football I've ever seen from a Sunderland team. It's largely the same players. Yes, we don't have Ahmad, but then when you look at the way Rigg and Roberts played together, you're thinking, very similar relationship, similar wavelengths, and it affects the whole team. This team is good. They didn't just lose their ability overnight. Lots of things went wrong last year, and it contributed to the performances on the pitch. We've got Cirkin back, we've got Eliezer back. Job and Hume are another year older and look like confident championship players. Patrick Roberts looks back to himself. Mm-hmm. Then we've got the emergence of players like Rigg, like Mayenda. Jack Clark, still one of the best players in the division. So these players are good players. That didn't change. We've now got a coach who's really got them drilled. Like, I'm seriously excited about Labrie. I think all of it. The way I put it earlier was kind of his influence is painted all over this team. Like, I'm watching the first 2 games in particular and games in pre-season. I'm watching it and I'm going, you can really see what he's been doing with them, because the differences are massive and they're noticeable. And it's early days, and I don't want to get too carried away. But imagine if we can keep this up. Imagine if we can. Well, it's true though. If we can keep this up, if we can keep playing like we are now, then we are going to be right up there. Yeah. But it does hinge on the ability to keep injury-prone players fit, doesn't it? That's the big if with all this. And I'm not going to get too carried away, and I want to take it one game at a time. I'm just really, really happy with this performance. If we can somehow play like this against Burnley, we could beat them. But at the same time, Burnley are brilliant. Yeah. And they could beat us. So it's going to be a good game either way. I'm just glad that we've gone into it with a bit of confidence, because I don't know if you were like me, but when I saw the fixture list and I was like, that looks tough, that start. For us to get 2 wins with 2 clean sheets is beyond my expectations for how I thought we'd start.
Yeah, never mind not getting carried away. You're already getting carried away. But no, I mean,
why not?
Look, the new manager needed a good start. Simple as that. He needed a good start because he's a bit of an unknown. He's now got a bit of credit in the bank, which is great. And I know obviously that the 2 wins, 2 clean sheets, brilliant. 6 goals across the first 2 games, fantastic. Obviously, there's a lot to get kind of excited about. Like you said, carried away, because you are. That's exactly what's happening there, Gav. I can sense it. I can feel you getting carried away. But the thing that kind of excites me is his comments after both games, where we've won both games, but he's turned around and said, yes, but we need to improve this. And I've seen this, and I've seen this I'm not happy with, and so he's basically said, we've won 2, but we're getting close to what I want, but I can see things that I want to improve, which is exactly what you want to see. Exactly what you want to hear from a new manager who wants to get his ideas across, and he's saying, yep, great, but there's things to work on. And kind of that's what kind of excites me more than anything else, that he can see he's not getting carried away. He knows how he wants to play, and he hasn't quite got it yet, even though we've won twice. And look, I mean, I know it's early in the season, and it's not going to be a make or break at all in any sense, but the next game against Burnley is just going to be a nice one in terms of, where are we?
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and it's not going to be, we shouldn't be too, disheartened if we don't come out with any points at all against Burnley. They look like they're going to run away with it, like almost like they did last time. But yeah, it's going to be a nice game where we can say, right, well, where do we stand? Where are we in terms of pitting ourselves against the likes of the Burnley? So yeah, we'll find out a little bit more about this team next week as well.
Yes, we will. We'll be back with a preview. I know I promised one during the week, and I'm quite good at that, promising podcasts and then not delivering on them. But we did promise a preview last week, and then I realised everybody was away. So We aren't all away this week, so we will give you a preview for the Burnley game, don't worry. But I could sit and talk all day about this. It's just one of my favourite performances in the last few years. I've really enjoyed even just watching every single... I think I've watched the goals back 50 million times, and I still got it wrong, the whole Luke 09 one. For some reason in my head, I felt like, Roberts put the ball in, but obviously, yeah, Rigg had a shot, didn't he? But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I've just loved watching all the highlights. I got back in, I put the coverage on from Sky straight away. I've watched every video on YouTube. It's just, this is what it's about. You know, this is what you want to feel like, isn't it? You know, your team getting you buzzing. It was just lovely looking around the stadium of light, seeing the red and white everywhere, because people have actually bought the kits this year. So everyone's, the crowds actually look like, you know, everyone's actually wearing the club merchandise. And then, you know, to the right of us, there was the display in the south stand. And yeah, just a nice feeling about set us up for I think it's going to be a tough couple of weeks, but, you know, I am really confident that we're going to get something off Burnley. And like I say, we'll be back to talk about that with a little bit more detail.
I was going to say, everyone trying to touch your third kit as if it was like the Turin Shroud or something.
It was really weird. So I was walking around with the long strip version of the third kit on, and I think I might have been the only person in the entire stadium with it on. All I got were comments of people coming up with us and saying, "Oh, that's actually a lot nicer in person." So maybe they'll sell a few more because I've been a walking advertisement for the long sleeve version of the strip. I don't know. Maybe not. They probably might be looking like, God, he looks like a bag of shit in that, doesn't he? He looks like a Wetherspoon's plate. But
size too small, was it?
Anyways, I like it. So, you know, I don't care if nobody else thinks it's, you know, good or not. My dad hates it. He couldn't get... He was beside himself on the way at the match that I was even wearing it, that I'd bought it. What you bought that for? Shite. And I'm like, hey, I like it. That's all that matters. Don't worry about you. So yeah, well, when we might wear that kit, I've got no idea. But yeah, I do like it. Anyways, talking shite now. Didn't get any listener questions, by the way. Sorry, people. We just don't want to make these podcasts drag on too long this season. So, and we've already done that. We're 15 minutes over budget. So cheers, Chris. Thanks, mate.
No bother. It was a pleasure, mate.
Yeah. Cheers to the listeners. Thank you very much. Like I say, we will try and get some questions in the preview. I might even save some of these ones for the preview. So fingers crossed we can get to them. Like I say, we'll be back to talk about the Burnley game. Make sure you check up with everything on rokerreport.sbnation.com this week. I've got a couple of bits going out this week. We've got bits coming from all over the place, everybody writing different things and opinions. And as I said, when we win a game like that, you just want to immerse yourself in everything. So head over to our website. Make sure you check us out on social media. We're everywhere, apart from Threads. Although I did get an email from a guy saying, I use Threads and I quite like the fact that you used to post on there. So just to let you know that there are some of us out there who do enjoy Roker Rapport and Threads. I might bring it back just for that guy. But we are everywhere. So yes, thank you very much, and we'll see you later.